The gavel came down, and the courtroom fell silent for 3 full seconds. Then Yvonne Zhao started crying. Not the quiet kind, not the dignified kind. The ugly kind. The kind that smeared mascara down her cheeks and sent strings of saliva flying from her lips. The kind that made her rip the collar of her embroidered qipao right down the seam. She dropped to her knees on the marble floor with a crack that echoed off the ceiling. Emily. Emily, please. Her voice bounced off the walls, sharp as broken glass. The bailiff tried to pull her up, but she fought him off with both arms, clawing forward toward the plaintiff's table. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Just write a letter of forgiveness. I'm begging you on my knees. She actually started bowing. Forehead to the floor, again and again. Her hairpin came loose. Strands of gray-streaked hair fell across her face, sticking to the tears and the smeared lipstick. The expensive green qipao she'd worn today, the one she'd picked out specifically for court, to look dignified, to look untouchable, was torn at the sleeve, revealing the pale, well-moisturized arm underneath. Someone in the gallery was taking pictures. Someone else was shaking their head. A few elderly women near the back whispered among themselves, where was this regret 3 years ago? I sat at the plaintiff's table, Grace in my arms. She was 4 years old now. She didn't understand the words flying around the courtroom, but Yvonne's screaming had startled her. Her little face burrowed into my chest, her tiny fingers gripping the collar of my blazer. Mommy, she looked up at me, eyes black and bright as polished stones. Why is Grandma crying? I looked down at her, pulled her closer, and patted her back gently. It's okay, Gracie. Don't be scared. I didn't turn around to look at Yvonne. Not because I didn't want to, but because if I did, she might see something in my eyes. Hate, maybe. Satisfaction, maybe. Or maybe something worse. Something dangerously close to pity. 3 years. From those 4 hours outside the delivery room to this very moment, 3 years had passed. The tears I'd cried in those years added up to more than all the tears I'd cried in my entire life before them. I had no tears left. Today, it was her turn to cry. Yvonne was still screaming something behind me, but the bailiffs dragged her further away, and the heavy wooden doors of the courtroom swung shut, cutting off the sound. I stood up with Grace in my arms. Harrison, my lawyer, was packing up the files beside me. He muttered under his breath, Ms. Lin, this is a very good outcome. I nodded, adjusted Grace on my hip, and walked toward the door. Sunlight streamed through the window at the end of the hallway, pale and blinding. Grace, perched on my shoulder, suddenly waved her little hand backward, like she was saying goodbye. I didn't look back. But I knew, from this day forward, Grace and I were starting something new. The door closed behind me. And yet, even as I walked away, my mind drifted backward. To the first time I stepped through the Gu family's front door. To that red booklet with the gold-lettered family rules. To those 4 hours in the hospital corridor that stretched like an eternity. To the winter nights I stood at the bus stop with Grace in my arms, shivering. Back then, I didn't know that a woman's patience doesn't buy respect. It buys more abuse. Back then, I still believed that if I was kind enough, if I endured enough, if I worked hard enough, my mother-in-law would eventually see my worth. I was wrong. The autumn of 2008. Ginkgo leaves blanketed the streets in gold. I carried 2 boxes of dried sea cucumber and a silk scarf in my hands, following Marcus Gu to his parents' front door. My palms were slick with sweat. Marcus turned and flashed me a smile. My mom's a good person. She just talks sharp sometimes. Don't take it to heart. He said it with that boyish grin, the same one I remembered from college. We'd reconnected at an alumni event. He'd just started at an architecture firm, wearing a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. He spoke softly. He seemed solid, dependable, the kind of man you could build a life with. The door opened. Yvonne stood in the entryway, wearing a dark red cardigan, her hair permed in tight curls. Her expression was hard to read, not quite welcoming, not quite hostile. Just assessing. Her eyes traveled from my face to my feet, then back up again, finally landing on the shopping bags in my hands. "You're here. Come in." She stepped aside, her voice flat. In the living room, a bespectacled man in his late 50s sat with a newspaper. That was George Gu, Marcus's father. He worked at the District Cultural Center and had written a few books nobody read, though he considered himself a man of letters. He glanced up when I entered, grunted, and went back to his paper. I set the gifts on the coffee table and greeted them politely, "Uncle George, Auntie Yvonne." Yvonne didn't respond. She leaned down, opened the gift bags, and pulled out the sea cucumber boxes. She turned them over, inspected the labels, then picked up the silk scarf. A faint smirk crossed her lips. "The sea cucumber is acceptable. Never heard of the brand, though." She pushed the gifts aside. "Sit." Dinner was 4 dishes and a soup, beautifully arranged. But before I'd even taken a single bite, Yvonne started her interrogation. "Emily, where is your family from?" "Nanching County." "Nanching?" Her chopsticks paused. "That's rural, isn't it?" "It's a small town. My parents are both middle school teachers." "Teachers?" Her expression softened slightly. "That's respectable, I suppose. Any siblings?" "Only child." "Only child?" Her frown returned. "Then who's going to take care of your parents when they're old? Won't that fall on Marcus? He can't afford to support your whole family, you know." My face flushed. I gripped my chopsticks tighter. "Auntie, I have a job. My parents have their own pensions. They won't be a burden. Your salary is barely enough for yourself." Yvonne put down her chopsticks, her tone shifting to something heavier, something that pretended to be concern. "Marriage isn't a romance novel. Everything costs money. Marcus has a stable government-adjacent job at the Design Institute. He'll be a chief engineer someday. You're just an accountant. That's fine, but after marriage, your priority should be the home." Marcus jumped in. "Mom, Emily's job is pretty good. Her company's doing well." "Good? How good could it be?" "Not as stable as yours." She shot him a look, then turned back to me. "Emily, I'm not trying to be difficult. But if you're joining the Gu family, there are some things we need to clarify." She stood up, walked to the TV cabinet, opened a drawer, and pulled out a red booklet with gold lettering. She slid it across the table to me. I looked down. The title read, "The Gu Family Code of Conduct." I opened it. The first page was filled with handwritten rules. The first line, "A Gu family wife shall honor her husband as heaven and her mother-in-law as earth. She shall attend to them morning and night without fail. All household finances shall be managed at the mother-in-law's discretion." My mind went blank. I looked up at Marcus. He was staring at his bowl, shoveling rice into his mouth like he hadn't seen a thing. "Auntie," I pushed the booklet back across the table, "it's the 21st century. These rules don't really fit anymore, do they?" Yvonne's smile cooled. "Don't fit? These have been passed down for generations. Marcus's grandmother lived by them. I lived by them. If you want to marry into this family, you'll live by them too." That meal left a bitter taste in my mouth. But on the way home, Marcus kept soothing me, "That's just how my mom is. Traditional. Her heart's in the right place. Let her talk, just let it go in one ear and out the other." I looked at his pleading, apologetic face, and my resolve softened. I told myself she was just old-fashioned. That with time, she'd come to see me differently. I didn't know that as soon as I left, Yvonne had tossed the silk scarf into a storage box and muttered, "Cheap street stall trash." I also didn't know that the bowl of snow fungus soup I'd never touched had been made with 3-year expired ingredients. She was testing me, to see if I'd notice, and if I'd say anything. I hadn't touched it, and somehow that annoyed her even more. "This girl thinks she's clever," she told a neighbor later. When wedding negotiations began, Yvonne called me to her house alone. "Emily, since you're getting married, we need to talk numbers." She poured herself a cup of tea, didn't offer me one. "How much does your family expect for the bride price?" I blinked. "My parents haven't set an amount. They said whatever is fair." "What's fair?" She set down her cup and stared at me. "I'll be honest with you, Marcus is a catch. A stable job at the Design Institute. Good looks. If he hadn't insisted on marrying you, I'd have said no." I gripped the edge of my chair. She held up 2 fingers. 20,000. That's the max. And that money comes back with you, to start your household. It doesn't stay with your parents. 20,000 yuan, in 2008, was laughably low. My colleagues had all gotten at least 68,000. "Auntie, isn't 20,000 a bit low?" "My parents." "Low?" She cut me off. "If you truly love Marcus, the amount doesn't matter. Besides, you're from a small town. I'm not asking for a dowry. What more do you want?" My lips parted, then closed. I swallowed the words. When I told my parents, they were disappointed but didn't push. "We're not in this for the money, sweetheart," my father said. "Just make sure he treats you right." The wedding was held in a modest banquet hall near Marcus's home, 15 tables. Yvonne chose the menu, $55 per table, drinks not included. When I mentioned a nicer gown, she said, "Just rent one. Why waste money on something you'll wear once?" I secretly spent $110 on a simple white dress. I didn't tell her. On the wedding day, Yvonne wore a bright red qipao with a silk flower pinned to her chest. She smiled, a lot, and her face crinkled with joy. During the tea ceremony, I knelt before her, raised the cup with both hands, and said, "Mother, please have tea." She took a sip, barely touched her lips to the rim, and pressed a thin red envelope into my palm. I squeezed it. Maybe 80, $90 inside. When it was Marcus's turn, she drank with gusto and slid him a fat, bulging red envelope. Looked like 1,000 at least. That night, I opened my envelope. 8 crisp 100 yuan bills, all brand new, all in sequence. I tucked them into the back of my drawer and felt a sting behind my eyes. Marcus came up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. "You okay? Long day?" I leaned into him, whispered, "Marcus, let's make this work. Let's be good to each other." He kissed my forehead. "Yeah. Let's be good." I meant it. I moved into Marcus's apartment after we married, a modest 2-bedroom, 800 square feet. His parents had made the down payment, so the deed was in his name. Yvonne kept a key and let herself in whenever she pleased. The first few months were fine. I came home, cooked, cleaned. Marcus worked late sometimes. Life was okay. But Yvonne visited often. She'd run her fingers along the TV stand and check for dust, inspect the range hood for grease stains. One time, she found my face cream in the bathroom and turned it over, examining the label. "This isn't cheap," she said, her voice dripping with false concern. "With what you earn, you should be more careful with money. Marcus works hard for his salary, don't waste it on yourself." I bit my tongue. "I bought it with my own money, Mom." "Your money." She slammed the bottle down. "Once you married into this family, your money is family money. There's no your money and my money. Unless you're planning to send it all to your own parents." I never said. "Just making sure." She jabbed a finger at my shoulder. "Once a woman marries, her loyalty is to her husband's family. Your parents? Send a gift on New Year's. That's all. No running back to them all the time. People will gossip." That night I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. Marcus snored beside me. I felt trapped in a cage, and Yvonne held the only key. Whenever I tried to talk to him, he'd wave me off. Here we go again. That's just my mom. Let her talk. Don't fight her, she's old. Old? Yvonne was barely 50, sharper than a tack, and had more stamina for screaming than anyone I'd ever met. I didn't know it then, but Yvonne had a whole other life I wasn't part of. One afternoon, I came home early. As I walked past the garden in front of our building, I heard Yvonne's voice. I'd recognize it from a block away. That daughter-in-law of mine. Don't even get me started. She was talking to Mrs. Lee from downstairs, not lowering her voice one bit. Lazy as they come. Does nothing around the house. Spends my son's money on makeup and skincare. My son makes $6,500 a month, she makes $35, and even that, she hides away, won't contribute to the household. Mrs. Lee said, she seems like a quiet girl, though. Quiet? That's a mask. Yvonne scoffed. You should hear the way she talks back to me at home. I'm just broad-minded, that's all. I don't let it get to me. If it weren't for my my granddaughter, I'd have had my son divorce her years ago. I stood frozen at the corner. A fish I'd just bought from the market flopped in its plastic bag. I didn't confront her. I walked away. That night I made braised fish for dinner. Yvonne came over, took a bite, and smiled sweetly at Marcus. Emily's cooking is getting better. She's improving. She picked up a piece of fish with her chopsticks and tried to put it in Grace's bowl. Grace was still a baby, too young for solids. She didn't even look at Grace as she did it. The fish fell right onto the tablecloth. She didn't pick it up. This child is picky, she continued, as if nothing had happened. We'll have to train her right. Marcus ate his dinner without looking up. A year into the marriage, I got pregnant. Marcus was overjoyed when I showed him the test. He spun me around the room. Yvonne's reaction, however, was ice cold. Well, you're pregnant, she said, cracking sunflower seeds on the sofa. I'll say this now, boy or girl, I don't care, but it better be a boy. The Gu family has been single son for 3 generations. I won't have the line end with you. I placed my hand on my still flat belly and said nothing. The first trimester was brutal. I couldn't keep anything down. I lost 9 pounds. I mentioned hiring a part-time housekeeper to help with meals. Marcus said okay. Yvonne hit the roof. A housekeeper? I puked my guts out carrying Marcus and still handled everything myself. She's just being precious. Mom, Emily's really not feeling well. Not feeling well. She's lazy. Yvonne's eyes went wide. Mark my words, if that baby comes out soft, it's because of her nonsense. Starting tomorrow, I'm coming over every day to supervise her meals. We'll see if she still throws up. She kept her word. She came every afternoon, didn't lift a finger, just sat in the living room watching TV. At mealtime, she'd direct me, go make me a bowl of noodles. Poach an egg. Or, get some ribs and make soup. Less salt, mind you. I stood in the kitchen, heavy-bellied, retching at the smell of grease, but I dared not throw up. She'd call me spoiled. One time it got so bad I bent over the stove, heaving. She walked over, leaned against the doorframe, and watched me. When I was pregnant with Marcus, his grandmother had me hauling firewood. You think this is hard? Young people today have no backbone. My hand trembled on the stove's edge. I wanted to say, Mom, I'm a human being. Your grandchild is inside me. Can't you show me one shred of kindness? I said nothing. I wiped my mouth, finished the noodles, and served her. She ate, made me clean the kitchen, then left. At the door, she tossed back, oh, I scheduled an ultrasound for next Tuesday. We'll find out if it's a boy or a girl. She came with me to the appointment, of course. The technician studied the screen for a long time, then said, "It looks like a girl." Yvonne's face fell. She said nothing on the way home. At the front door, she threw her purse onto the sofa and sat there, stewing in silence. "Girl is fine," Marcus ventured. "Girls are just as good." "Good." Yvonne slapped the armrest. "I waited my whole life for a grandson, and you're giving me a girl. The Gu family line ends with you." She burst into tears, loud, theatrical sobs. "My life is so hard. I raised a son for nothing, just to watch him give me a granddaughter." I stood there, my hand pressed protectively over my belly, and felt like someone was carving out my insides with a dull knife. My daughter hadn't even been born, and she was already a disappointment. Marcus, driven mad by his mother's crying, turned on me. "You couldn't even take care of yourself while pregnant? How did you end up with a girl?" I stared at him, disbelieving. My lips trembled. Tears welled. I can't control that." My voice shook. He looked away. That night I cried alone in the bedroom until my eyes burned. I rubbed my belly and whispered, "Baby, don't be afraid. Mommy wants you. Boy or girl, Mommy wants you." From inside, the baby kicked, just once. Like she heard me. My due date was December 20th, 2009. I went into labor on December 18th. At first, the contractions were manageable. By noon, they came fast and furious. The nurse checked me, 3 centimeters. She said to wait. At 2 p.m., the fetal monitor alarmed. The doctor's face went grim. They checked again, the baby had turned, and the amniotic fluid was clouding. "The baby's heart rate is dropping. Likely oxygen deprivation." The doctor hurried to the door. "Who's the family? We need consent for an emergency C-section." Marcus jumped up. But Yvonne was faster. She grabbed his arm. "Doctor," Yvonne said, her voice steady, "what time is it?" 2:10 p.m. "There's no time to waste." 2:10, Yvonne pulled out her phone, checked the calendar. "The monkey hour hasn't passed yet. The fortune teller said this child is born with bad luck, they need to be born in the rooster hour to suppress it. That's after 5 o'clock. Just 1 more hour. Make her hold on." The doctor stared at her. "Ma'am, the mother and baby are in danger. 1 hour might be too long." I said wait. Yvonne's voice rose. "You people just want to charge more for surgery. We know how this works. This isn't about money. Then it's about your incompetence." Yvonne squared up. "I was in labor for 3 days with Marcus. She's been at this for hours. Women are built for this." I lay on the gurney. Through the half-open door, every word drove into my skull like a nail. "Rooster hour, wait for rooster hour." I reached out and grabbed a passing nurse's sleeve. My voice was barely a whisper. "Please, save my baby." The nurse, a young woman, had tears in her eyes. But she was only a nurse. Without a signature, the doctor couldn't move. "Doctor," she ran back into the room. "The mother's consciousness is fading. Heart rate dropped to 80. The doctor rushed out again. "Family. If you don't sign now, both mother and child could die. Do you understand the consequences?" Yvonne sat on the bench, arms crossed. "Women give birth. That's their job. You'll wait, all of you, until 5 o'clock. No one touches my daughter-in-law." "Mom." Marcus finally spoke, voice trembling. "Maybe we should sign." "Shut up." Yvonne pointed at him. "If you sign, I'll disown you. This child's destiny affects the next 30 years of the Gu family. Rooster hour brings fortune, monkey hour brings death to father and mother. You destroy everything for one woman." Marcus shriveled. Time crawled. The sounds from the delivery room grew fainter. The monitors screamed. In the corridor, other families gathered, staring. Someone whispered, "That mother-in-law is something else." 4:50 p.m. I had gone silent. A nurse ran out, crying openly. "She's in shock. There's no more time." Marcus ripped his arm free from his mother, lunged for the pen, and signed the form. "Do it. Now." Yvonne tried to block him, but two other families pulled her back. "Your daughter-in-law is dying. What's wrong with you?" 4:58 p.m. I was wheeled into surgery. 5:12 p.m. A thin, weak cry, no louder than a kitten's mew, came from the delivery room. It lasted only seconds, then faded. Half an hour later, the doctor came out, face ashen. The baby was without oxygen for too long. Severe asphyxia. "We revived her, but there's damage to the brain. Muscle tone is abnormal. She'll need long-term observation and rehabilitation. There may be permanent motor and neurological impairment." Yvonne's face flickered, a shadow of something. Then she straightened, lifted her chin, and turned to Marcus. "See? I told you. The hour was wrong. This is what happens when you don't listen to me." She never asked how I was doing. I woke up the next morning. The anesthesia had worn off. My incision burned. The first thing I said, "The baby, where's my baby?" Marcus sat beside me, red-eyed. "She's in the NICU. She's going to be fine. Rest." "Boy or girl?" "Girl." I closed my eyes. Tears slid down my temples. "Bring her to me." The nurse brought her in. Small. Fragile. Wrapped in a blue blanket. Her face was wrinkled, still slightly purple at the edges. I reached out a trembling finger and touched her cheek. Her little head turned, and her eyes opened. Black. Bright. Staring right at me. I sobbed, pulling her to my chest. "Don't be scared, baby. Mommy's here." Yvonne came in, glanced at the baby, and left within 30 seconds. From the hallway, I heard her say, "That child doesn't look right. She'll be a burden. Have another one, quick. I'll have the fortune teller pick a proper birth hour this time." Marcus said, I held my baby tighter. My face pressed into the blanket, hiding my expression from anyone who might see. Something inside me had gone dark. I named her Grace. Grace Goo. Because I never wanted to forget, she was everything. I would never abandon her. At 1 month, Grace weighed less than 7 pounds. She didn't track faces or voices. Her limbs were soft as cotton. At 3 months, the pediatrician's face was serious. Low muscle tone, poor tracking. Get to a pediatric rehab center. Now. The assessment came back, hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy. Developmental delay. Neurological abnormalities. Therapy had to start immediately. It's expensive, the doctor said, but the next 6 months are critical. Don't delay. I gripped the diagnosis papers. I showed Marcus. He was quiet for a long time. "How much?" he asked. "Maybe 500 a month. And that's just the beginning." He frowned. "We have mortgage payments. Your salary's not that much." "Mine's decent but..." "Marcus." I grabbed his hand. "Grace can't wait. The doctor said the first 6 months." I know. He pulled his hand back and scratched his head. "Let me talk to my mom." The next day, he came home looking defeated. "Mom says no," he said. "She says the baby's too young for all that. It'll sort itself out." And she said. "What?" She said if we spend the money and Grace doesn't get better anyway, it's wasted. We should save it and try for another one. Something inside me snapped. I stepped forward, got in his face, and said through my teeth, "Marcus. Listen carefully. Grace is my daughter. I will get her treatment whether you help or not. If I need to take a second job, I will. If I need to stay up every night, I will. No one is stopping me. He'd never see me like this. Fine, fine. We'll try. I'll see what I can do about the money. What he did was give me $300 a month. He made over $1,000 monthly. The mortgage was $500. $300 to me. The rest, who knew where it went? I didn't ask. I was afraid of the answer. Those 3 years, I dreaded winter most. At 5 in the afternoon, the sky went black. Grace's therapy ended at 6. I'd carry her out of the warm little treatment room into a cold wind that cut through every layer. She'd be bundled in a small blanket, only her eyes showing. Her breath made fog on the blanket's inner lining. The bus came every 40 minutes. I held her in one arm and gripped the overhead rail with the other. Most times, there were no seats. My arm would go completely numb. At my stop, I'd have to bite down on my glove with my teeth to keep from dropping her. One snowy evening, the bus was nearly an hour late. I stood at the stop, feet frozen, legs trembling. Grace had fallen asleep against my chest, her tiny face warm against my heart, breathing evenly. I didn't dare move. A woman nearby watched me for a while, then came over and pressed her hand warmer into my hand. Take it, dear. Don't let your baby freeze. I tried to say thank you, but my lips were so cold that what came out was just a shiver. Grace improved slowly. At 5 months, she lifted her head. At 8, she rolled over. At 1 year, she still couldn't sit up. But every small victory was a milestone to me. Grace rolled over. Come see. I called to Marcus once. He looked up from his phone in the study. Oh. Nice. And went back to scrolling. My smile faltered. I looked down at my daughter, still struggling to flip herself. Great job, Gracie. Mommy saw. Grace couldn't talk, but she could smile. Every time she saw me, she'd show her toothless gums and her eyes would crinkle into crescents. That smile was the only light in those dark days. For 3 years, I bought no new clothes. My winter coat was faded and frayed at the collar, stuffing poked out of the sleeves. At lunch, I ordered the cheapest items on the company menu, saving everything for Grace's therapy. I turned down every dinner invite from coworkers. I have things at home, I'd say. Fiona came to visit one evening and found me in the kitchen, gnawing on a cold bun with pickled vegetables, boiling water for Grace's bottle on the stove. She stood in the doorway for 5 full seconds. Her eyes went red. Emily. You're going to kill yourself doing this. I swallowed the bun and forced a smile. It's fine. Grace will get better. Fiona didn't argue. The next day, she transferred $2,000 to my account, with a forward note, for Grace. I kept the transfer receipt in my notebook. I'd pay her back someday. But to Yvonne, my suffering meant nothing. She'd show up unannounced, open the fridge, sneer at the contents. Buying cheap food like this? Grace needs nutrition. Mom, most of my paycheck goes to therapy. Don't start. She'd cut me off. You're part of this family now. You spend all our money on that child, what's left for Marcus? I told you she's no good, but you wouldn't listen. No good. She said that about her granddaughter. I picked Grace up, walked to the living room, and looked Yvonne in the eye. This is your granddaughter. Say one more bad thing about her, and you won't be welcome here. Yvonne went red, snatched her purse, and left. Marcus came out of the study, frowning. Why do you have to talk to her like that? She's my mother. I carried Grace back to the bedroom and closed the door. From behind it, I heard him mutter, she's getting out of hand. Out of hand. I looked at Grace, who was chewing on her fingers and drooling down her chin. Grace, I whispered, you're the only one I have. I will fix this. I promise. When Grace was 18 months old, I found something I wasn't meant to see. Marcus had left his phone on the coffee table while he showered. I didn't mean to look, but the screen lit up with a message preview that froze my blood. Marcus, Auntie Yvonne is pushing again. When are we making this official? I've been waiting so long. Sender, Lily. My hands shook as I unlocked his phone, no passcode. The message thread went back 3 months. Marcus, Auntie brought me soup today. She said I need to build up my strength. Marcus, when are you going to tell her? I can't wait anymore. Don't worry about that kid, Marcus. Auntie says she's brain damaged anyway. She'll always be a burden. Marcus's replies, soon. I know. Lily, be patient. And the last one, sent that afternoon, Lily, once I sort out the house, I'll talk to her. I set the phone back on the table, walked into the bedroom, closed the door, and slid down against it. I covered my face with both hands and made no sound. I knew then, crying was over. Tears were useless. They only made you weaker. The next morning, I took half a day off and went to the public library. I looked up divorce law, property division, custody rulings. I filled an entire notebook with notes. I called Fiona. She was a journalist, she knew people. Fiona. I need you to dig up some information. Who? Marcus Gu. Yvonne Zhao. And a woman named Lily Su, Yvonne's niece. Financial records, property, employment history. Everything. Fiona paused. Emily, what's going on? I'm getting divorced. Good. You should have done that ages ago. But why all the digging? My voice was calm. Because I'm not walking away empty-handed. Grace's therapy costs. My wasted years. And the 4 hours she stole from me in that hospital. I'm getting it all back. Fiona knew me. On the outside, I seemed gentle. But underneath, I was stubborn. Everyone had warned me not to marry Marcus. I did anyway. Now I was set on leaving. No one would stop me. Done, Fiona said. But be careful. Yvonne is not a simple woman. What pushed me over the edge came a few nights later. I walked in the door to find Yvonne sitting in the living room with a bowl of murky black liquid in front of her. Grace was in Marcus's lap, screaming, as Marcus pried her mouth open and Yvonne tried to pour the liquid in. What are you doing? I charged across the room, shoved Yvonne aside, and grabbed Grace. Grace was coughing, her face purple, dark brown fluid dripping from her lips down her chin and onto her shirt. What is wrong with you? Yvonne stumbled back, the bowl shattering on the floor. I spent good money on that. The master said if she drinks it for 49 days, the brain damage will heal. And you push me? Brain damage? I was wiping Grace's face, her tiny body still convulsing with coughs. Yvonne. What did you put in my daughter? Talisman water. From a real master. 800 yuan a bowl. I paid for it out of my own pocket, and this is the thanks I get. Marcus stood there, looking embarrassed. Emily, Mom was just trying to help. Help? I spun on him, eyes blazing. You watched her pour God knows what into our daughter's throat and you call that help? Grace's organs are fragile enough. Do you want to kill her? I said it's talisman water, not poison. Yvonne shrieked. You ungrateful woman. I've done everything for this family, and you. Get out. I pointed at the door, holding Grace tight. Yvonne. Leave. Now. What? This is my son's house. I said get out. My voice cracked, and Grace started crying again. I took a breath and lowered my voice to a whisper that somehow cut deeper. If you don't leave this second, I'm calling the police. I'll report you for poisoning my child. That water you gave her, we'll have it tested. We'll see exactly what's in your 800 yuan miracle cure. Yvonne went white. She was many things, but she wasn't stupid. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Lin Wanzhao, you'll regret this. The door slammed. I carried Grace to the bedroom, rocking her gently. She sniffled against my shoulder, her small fists tangled in my collar. Don't be scared, Grace, I whispered. No one will ever hurt you again. No one. Marcus appeared in the doorway. After a long pause, he said, you kicked my mom out. Who's going to watch the baby now? I looked at him, and my eyes held nothing, no anger, no sadness, no warmth. Marcus, I said, one word at a time, we're getting a divorce. This time, I meant it. I took Grace to the hospital for a full workup, no acute damage, thank God, and saved the report, along with my recording of Yvonne's confession about the talisman water, into a cloud folder. Fiona was making progress. Emily. You won't believe what I found. Her voice crackled with excitement. Your mother-in-law's villa, the deed is in Lily Sue's father's name. Your father-in-law's car, registered under Lily. And Marcus's promotion? The bidding process for that municipal project, 2 of the expert reviewers received 50,000 yuan wire transfers a week before the bid opened. The transfer account is a company called Yaji Culture. Guess who's the legal representative? Your mother-in-law. Yaji Culture. I gripped the phone. Shell Company. Registered capital 70,000. Address is that villa. Listed as Cultural Exchange, but it's a front for money laundering. And, Fiona went on, that book your father-in-law wrote? About a third of it is plagiarized. Copied from the unpublished manuscript of a retired professor in the South. The professor died 2 years ago. His family had no idea. I did a side-by-side comparison. Word for word, punctuation for punctuation. My fingers were cold, but my heart was racing. Each piece of evidence could strip the Gu family bare. I gathered it all. Burned a CD. Made print copies. Filed them in 3 places, Fiona's place, my company safe, and my lawyer's office. The lawyer's name was Harrison. He specialized in divorces and white-collar crime. Expensive, but worth it. After reviewing the files, he was silent for 10 minutes. Then he took off his glasses. Ms. Lin, he said slowly, you have enough here to bury 3 generations of the Gu family. Are you sure about this? Grace was in my lap, playing with my hair and drooling. Mr. Harrison, I said calmly, they took everything from me. I'm taking it back. Yvonne didn't stay idle. When she learned I wanted a divorce, first she raged. Then she started scheming. She summoned Marcus for a family council. What does she think she's playing at? Divorce? On what grounds? She came into this family with nothing. Our house, our money. Grace's medical bills came out of Marcus's pocket. And she thinks she can just take the kid. Mom, Grace is my child. Yours? That girl is defective. She'll be a millstone for life. Yvonne stabbed a finger at Marcus's forehead. If you want to marry Lily, you can't keep the burden. She gets the kid, no child support, and she can rot with that invalid. And the house, that's premarital property. She gets nothing. What if she fights it? Fights it? We'll sue. Best lawyer money can buy. We'll say she's unfit, she's abusive, she's mentally unstable. Drag it out for a year, 2 years. She'll break. They always break. Marcus sat there, saying nothing. But Lily's messages kept coming. Marcus, my mom says once your divorce is finalized, we can have the wedding. She's already looking at venues. I saw all of it. Because Marcus didn't know I'd installed a sync app on his phone. Every message, every call, every transaction, sent straight to my email. I watched those messages with no expression. I was a hunter now. I'd let my prey walk right into the snare, and then I'd pull the trap shut. That day came faster than I expected. Yvonne heard about my university alumni reunion and got herself an invitation. She brought Lily along. Fiona said, "You have to go. Let's see what she's planning. And you'll get a good look at your husband's new love while you're at it." I wore a simple white shirt and a clean ponytail. Nothing fancy. But my eyes had a quiet intensity that drew second glances. The party was in a mid-range hotel. 30-some people. Fiona and I found a corner table and chatted with old classmates. Around 7 p.m., the doors swung open. Yvonne entered in a jade green embroidered cheapao, high heels, a string of large pearls, and enough jewelry to blind someone. Behind her came Lily in a pink dress, hair in waves, heels that made her tower over everyone, every inch the almost bride. "Oh, we're late." Yvonne's voice cut through the room like a bullhorn. "Mrs. Gu. What brings you?" The class president hurried over. Marcus was an alumnus too, and Lily was as well. Yvonne waved airily. I had nothing to do, so I came along with Lily. My, what a turnout. Her eyes scanned the room like searchlights, stopped on me, and curled into a smile. She marched over, Lily in tow. "Emily, you're here too," she announced at full volume. "Oh, you came alone?" "Left Grace with the babysitter. You know, with her condition, you should really stay home more. A woman's place is with her family." Fiona went red, but I squeezed her hand under the table. Lily sipped her wine and smiled. "You're so plain, Emily. Marcus was saying the other day that he wanted to buy you a necklace, but you refused. A woman should invest in herself, you know. Otherwise, she'll lose her husband's attention." The whispers started. "Her daughter's really sick. I heard brain damage. She's here partying." "That's cold. Is Mrs. Gu trying to show off a new daughter-in-law?" "Looks like it." The words hit like needles. Fiona was shaking with rage. I stayed calm. I rose slowly, picked up my untouched glass of orange juice, and walked over to Yvonne. "Mom," I said, soft enough that the room had to go quiet to hear me, "you look beautiful tonight. Do you have good news to share?" Yvonne straightened. "Maybe I do." "What's it to you?" "Everything," I said, smiling. "I'm still your daughter-in-law, after all. And you've brought my husband's fiancé to my class reunion, just to humiliate me. The least I can do is make a toast." And I threw the entire glass of orange juice across her chest, soaking the jade green cheapao from neckline to hem. Yvonne shrieked. "Are you insane?" I set the glass down gently. "You say I don't care for Grace. But where were you every night I stayed up until 2 a.m. doing her exercises? You say I waste money, but your son gives me $300 a month and you call that generous?" I turned to the room. "Everyone, I'm sorry you have to see this. I married into the Gu family, had a daughter whose brain was damaged because my mother-in-law refused to approve a C-section. I've done all her therapy alone. I've carried every burden. Now my mother-in-law is here with my husband's mistress, trying to drag me through the mud." I faced Yvonne again. "Mrs. Zhao, you put on quite a show today. But you forgot one thing." "What?" she hissed. I stepped closer and whispered for her ears only, "I know about the municipal project. Yaji culture. The 50,000 yuan transfers. The bidding experts. Guess what the disciplinary committee will do when they find out?" Yvonne went white as paper. I stepped back. "This juice is my wedding gift to you and Miss Lily. As for the divorce, tell Marcus I'll see him in court." I grabbed a stunned Fiona and walked out into the silence. Outside, the night wind hit me. My eyes stung, but I blinked back the tears. Fiona was beside herself. "Emily. That was incredible. Did you see her face?" I smiled and texted Harrison, "Let's begin." After the reunion, the Gu household went nuclear. Yvonne smashed a tea set. Did you see what she did? She poured juice on me in public. And she knows about the project. How? Marcus panicked. How does she know? Only you and Mr. Liu knew. How should I know? Yvonne was hysterical. She has leverage. She's going to destroy us. We need a plan. Lily was pale. Auntie, if she really... She's got nothing. Yvonne cut her off. No proof. It's all hearsay. Even if she does, we can say it's fabricated. Don't panic. But her hands trembled. She knew the project wouldn't survive scrutiny. 50,000 wasn't much, but it was bribery. Marcus would lose his job, and worse. That night, she called her fortune teller. He mused, Mrs. Zhao, this woman's fate is too strong. Don't confront her directly. Soften her. How? Money. Offer her a settlement. If she drops the lawsuit, the evidence dies with it. Yvonne liked that. The next day, Marcus called me for a talk. I agreed, at a cafe near my office, public enough that she couldn't act out. Yvonne and Marcus sat across from me. She slid an envelope across the table. There's $7,000 here, she said with forced warmth. Emily, I was wrong before. I said things I shouldn't have. Take this, for Grace's therapy. We can part ways peacefully, no court. Name your terms. I didn't touch the envelope. $7,000, I said, to buy my silence. Yvonne's smile faltered. How much do you want? I don't want your money. I pushed it back. I want a court judgment. I want everyone to know how the Gu family treats their wives and daughters. Yvonne, I'm telling you now, the summons is coming. 3 days. Say it in court, not here. I stood to leave. Marcus grabbed my wrist. Emily. After everything, you'd really do this to me? I looked down at his hand, the same hand that once felt safe and warm. Marcus. I pried his fingers off one by one. Where were you when your mother was trying to kill our daughter? Where were you in that hospital? Where were you when I was alone with Grace in the cold, carrying her to therapy while you played video games at home? I pulled free. Our marriage ended the day you agreed to give Grace up. I walked out. Behind me, Yvonne and Marcus sat frozen. As I left, a woman at the next table gave me a thumbs up. Good for you, sweetheart. I smiled at her. My eyes stung, but I didn't cry. 3 days later, District Court. I wore a black blazer, hair neat, Grace in my arms. She was quiet today, playing with a stuffed bunny, occasionally looking around. Across the room, Marcus, Yvonne, and George. George was sweating through his handkerchief. Yvonne had her lawyer, the most expensive in the city, and glared at me when she thought I wasn't looking. In the gallery, Fiona, a few classmates, and several strangers. Later I'd learn they were the family of the professor George had plagiarized. Harrison began. Your Honor, the plaintiff's requests are, 1. Dissolution of marriage, 2. Sole custody of Grace Gu, with monthly child support of $700 and all therapy costs, 3. Division of marital property, 4. Damages for marital misconduct. Yvonne's lawyer stood. Your Honor, custody is contested. The plaintiff is too busy with work. The child's condition requires time and resources the plaintiff lacks. Marcus Gu has a stable income and his parents are willing to help care for the child. I almost laughed. Yvonne helping Grace. By force-feeding her $60 bowls of holy water. Harrison spoke calmly, Your Honor, I have evidence that the defendant and his family engaged in severe abuse and neglect of the plaintiff and her child. With the court's permission, I'd like to present it. The courtroom stilled. Harrison displayed the first exhibit, a hospital security photo from December 18, 2009, 4 feet away from the delivery room. The fetal monitor read 82 BPM. Your Honor, this is the plaintiff's delivery day hospital log. At 2:10 p.m., doctors recommended immediate C-section. But the defendant's mother, Yvonne Zhao, refused consent, for astrological reasons, endangering mother and child for over 4 hours. We have the full video and audio. The audio played. Yvonne's voice filled the courtroom. Rooster hour, the master said, after 5 o'clock. Yvonne's face cycled through colors. Her lawyer put a hand on her arm. Harrison continued, due to this delay, the child was born with severe asphyxia and later diagnosed with hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy. The defendant's family refused to pay for therapy and instead gave the child unregulated talisman water, endangering her further. Next, photos of Grace vomiting after the talisman, plus hospital toxicology reports. The judge's expression darkened. Harrison opened a second binder. Now, regarding other marital misconduct and additional criminal matters. Yvonne started trembling. Harrison displayed a bank transfer receipt. Marcus Gu, while employed at the Design Institute, transferred $7,000 each to 2 municipal bid evaluation experts, 1 week before bidding closed, under the account of Yaji Culture, owned by Yvonne Zhao. The gallery erupted. George stood up. That's consulting fees. Not bribes. Harrison calmly displayed another image. This is George Gu's book, side by side with the late Professor Zhou Mingda's unpublished manuscript. Red highlights mark identical passages, down to the punctuation. The professor's family is here today to testify. The court officer led in an elderly woman, supported by a younger relative. She took the stand, voice trembling but clear. My husband's manuscript was his life's work. He was revising it until the day he died. Then it was stolen, we reported it, never found. Until Mr. Harrison found me. She turned to face George, eyes wet. Mr. Gu, you're a writer too. How could you take my husband's words and claim them as your own? Where is your conscience? George collapsed into his chair, face gray. Yvonne shoved him. Say something. Was it your book or not? George snapped. You were the one showing it off to everyone. Now you blame me. I'm blaming you. You couldn't write a single page without stealing. All of this happened because of your schemes. They argued, voices rising, until the judge banged the gavel 3 times. Someone in the gallery laughed. I sat at the plaintiff's table, not turning around. I held Grace, who looked up at me and smiled. That smile made my eyes mist. The trial lasted 4 hours. Harrison submitted everything, Marcus's affair messages, Yvonne's recordings, bank statements showing Marcus's evasion of family expenses. Yvonne's lawyer claimed the evidence was illegally obtained. Harrison was ready, everything had original backups and was notarized. Marcus's final statement. Your Honor. I admit I made mistakes. But Grace is my daughter. I want her to have a good life. I can change, I'll be better. I looked at him. The man who stood silent in the hospital hallway. The man who watched his mother poison his daughter. The man who planned to walk away. Marcus, I said, quiet but clear, you've made me promises before. My mom's just like that, let it slide. I let it slide for 3 years. Money's tight, I'll figure it out. For 3 years, all you gave was $300. Grace will get better. You never even asked when her next therapy appointment was. I held Grace close. She reached up and touched my cheek. Your better is too expensive. It costs Grace's entire childhood. It cost me half my life. I don't have anything left to give. Marcus opened his mouth. Nothing came out. The judge delivered the verdict. The marriage of Emily Lin and Marcus Gu is dissolved. Custody of Grace Gu is awarded to the plaintiff. Defendant to pay $700 monthly child support, plus 80% of Grace's documented therapy costs. Property division, the premarital residence remains defendant's, but the plaintiff is entitled to reimbursement for shared mortgage payments and appreciation. The defendant shall pay $4,500 for emotional damages. Further, criminal matters involving commercial bribery and plagiarism will be referred to the appropriate agencies. The gavel fell. Yvonne burst into sobs. No. No. My son can't go to jail. I'll pay. I'll pay anything. The bailiffs held her back. She clawed at them, cheepow tearing, hair flying, makeup smearing into a surreal mask. Emily. Emily. She threw herself toward me. I was wrong. Please. Write a letter. Forgive him. He's all I have, he's the last goo. I stood with Grace in my arms and looked at the woman who'd once held herself so high. Yvonne, I said gently, whether he faces justice isn't my decision. It's his. The law will be fair. I walked away. Yvonne screamed after me, reaching, but the doors closed. Grace looked back over my shoulder. Her little face was expressionless. Then she waved her hand, like goodbye. The doors shut. 1 month later, Marcus was fired and under investigation. 2 months later, George was convicted of plagiarism, 1 year suspended, plus fines. His book recalled. All royalties clawed back. Yvonne's Yaji culture was shut down. The villa was seized. Lily's family fled south. Marcus called me the day he was arrested. I almost didn't answer. But I did. His voice was cracked. Emily. I'm sorry. I just wanted to hear Grace. I put the phone to Grace's ear. She was building blocks. She heard the sound and said, "Ah." Grace, I said, say Daddy. She thought for a moment. Duh. Duh. A choked sob on the other end. Then a dial tone. I hung up and lifted Grace high. She laughed, arms waving. Sunlight filled the room. Marcus got 3 years. Yvonne got 2 years, suspended, plus asset forfeiture. She moved back to the old Gu family house. I saw a photo of her online, on the street, picking through wilted vegetables at a market stall. The seller said she only took the ones other people threw away. The fortune teller was sentenced to 5 years for fraud. Yvonne had paid him over $25,000 for those talisman bowls. I visited Yvonne once, at the detention center, not out of kindness, but legal necessity. She'd lost weight. Her hair was half gray. When she saw me, she opened her mouth, then shut it. Grace, is she finally asked. She's walking now, I said. Yvonne looked down. Tears dropped onto the table. She said nothing. At the door, I heard a tiny voice, I'm sorry. I didn't turn around. 1 year later. I opened a small store in the city center, Never Forget Grace. It sold therapy tools, sensory toys, and adaptive gear for special needs children. In the back was a small treatment room. I'd studied rehab therapy on my own, even got certified. Fiona ran a media story on me, One Mother's Rebirth, from divorce to healing. People came, to buy, to learn, to talk. I listened to them all. I knew what they were going through. And Grace kept growing. At 3 years old, she took her first steps. She wobbled, swayed, nearly fell, but she walked. I crouched at the end of the store aisle and opened my arms. Grace, come to mommy. She held the wall, lifted 1 foot, then the other. 3 steps, and she fell into my arms. Mommy. She hugged my neck, smearing drool on my cheek. Grace walked. I held her, laughing and crying. Yeah, Gracie. You did. I kissed her forehead. Mommy's here. I'm always here. The store bell jingled. An elderly woman walked in, squinting at the sign. Is this your store, dear? Yes, ma'am. What can I help with? My grandson, he's a little different. I was looking for one of those exercise balls for his hands. I smiled. I have one, soft grip, good for fine motor skills. Let me show you. Sunlight streamed through the window, scattering rainbows across the colorful toys. Grace sat on her mat, stacking blocks, knocking them down, starting over. I helped the grandmother while stealing glances at my daughter. And in that moment, I knew, every bitter winter, every sleepless night, every tear I'd ever cried, it had all been worth it. Because Grace was growing. And she was happy. And I had become the person I was always meant to be. 3 months later, a registered letter arrived. No return address. But the handwriting was unmistakable. Yvonne. I opened it. Emily. Marcus got 3 years. His biggest regret is those 4 hours in the hospital. I'm old now. Everything is gone. Take care of Grace. Yvonne. 47 words. I folded the letter and placed it in my drawer, next to the 8 red envelope bills. I didn't reply. I didn't throw it away. It just sat there. Grace ran over and tugged my sleeve. Mommy, look at my house. I looked down. She'd built a lopsided little structure out of blocks, with a tiny flag on top. Mommy, this is our house. She beamed. I crouched down to her level. Yes, Gracie. That's our house. The sunset painted the room gold. Our shadows stretched long across the floor, overlapping, inseparable. Would I ever forgive Yvonne? Or Marcus? Maybe. Maybe not. But I didn't need to. Because my days were my own now. Grace's days were her own. And our path lay ahead, one we'd walk with our heads held high.